I think I've got to give someone a wave at the back there first. I've got a wave back, and my green light's on. Does that sound? How does that sound? Hello, I'm Stephen. Stephen Ingledew. Welcome to Fintech Scotland's symposium, Women in Fintech. Delighted to see so many of you here. We expect a few more people, so may come in as we go through it. Please excuse as well my croaky voice, probably just talking too much. Now I need to wear this as well, is that right? Yes. So we've got two devices because we're being live streamed, sorry. It's not just my voice, it's my vocabulary that's struggling. So yes, because it was a sellout in terms of the number of people wanted to come, we were given the opportunity to stream this around the world. So if you want to have a global appearance, then please, you'll be invited to come up here alongside the other very distinguished speakers we've got. But anyway, welcome. So my name's Stephen. I'm your sort of host, the Chief Executive of Fintech Scotland, and we have delighted to see so many of you here. We have a real fantastic set of people to share their perspective about fintech, about Scotland, about investing, and about the role really in terms of the importance of inclusivity. The ambition, oh, where's my clicker? Here we go. Our ambition is for Scotland to be a top 5 global fintech hub in 2 years' time, in 2020. We're currently ranked about 16th in the world. So top 5 in 2 years, big ambition, a bit tough, but we believe we can get there. And that's because that slide here is saying we have all the ingredients actually here in Scotland to be a global fintech hub that is very much recognised around the world, but also recognised within Scotland. And whether that's in terms of the established financial services market, the innovators and entrepreneurs, the academia and the students coming through, the innovative sort of mindset, and sort of the whole Scotland just being a great place to live. And all those other factors, we feel we can hopefully get there if we play our cards right and get all the components here working together as one team. And that's why Fintech Scotland was established from the start of this year. With myself, Mikhail and Sherry, who's with us as well, a team of 3. But we're part of a bigger universe really to make that happen, working with the Scottish Government, with the universities, particularly University of Edinburgh, and of course the private sector. Those have actually established us as an organisation. So we're quite unique because we are that 3-way in terms of government, academia, universities and private sector. And our goal really is to help Scotland go on that journey. We can't do it ourselves. We're very much kind of a coach in the way we'll do that with the players on the pitch. But we want to do that by connecting up the various players, the big companies with the small companies, the entrepreneurs with those who have challenges, who want to evolve with this digital and data-driven environment. Helping those entrepreneurs, those fintech businesses that have great insights and opportunities but want to develop onto the next stage, and whether that's through funding or whether that's through business services. But also making sure there's the right sort of skills and talent coming through to support your business as it grows going forward. And then build the profile of fintech in Scotland, but also globally, by building relationships with our partners and our colleagues in other parts of the world, whether that's in the Middle East, in Africa, in the US, and into the Far East and Australia as well. And we're going to do that by having a sustainable enterprise called Fintech Scotland. So that's the journey. And we're very fortunate in the way that Scotland's very much really on that journey. So here's a very busy infographic about, these are the 30, you could sort of say there are more than 30 fintech enterprises in Scotland right now. Some are very new, some have been developing, some are more established. But they come across in 4 main areas, whether it's around in the area of payments, in the area of consumer engagement, in the area of regulation and security, identity security, or in the area of data management. They all have a common trait around a focus around using data to drive innovation through new technology. And we're going to hear from 2 of those enterprises later on today about their journey, the journeys that Jude and Laurel have been on in taking their business as part of the ecosystem. But there are more, and we find actually more. There's 2 that actually just made themselves known to us last week that need to go onto this list. So the innovations, the opportunities are there being developed in Scotland. We need to make sure they're being supported and continue to grow and provide those future employment opportunities going forward. Fintech Scotland is there really to create the jobs for Scotland in the future as well as today. So that's my piece really. So that's enough of my croaky voice. And what we're going to do really is to really sort of talk around one of the key areas that stand behind what makes Fintech Scotland really move forward in a very positive way. We have three main sort of lines in which we want to drive that forward. One is financial innovation. The second is around collaboration. And the third, really importantly, as part of that is inclusion. Inclusion, because fintech provides an opportunity to challenge those traditional boundaries that have held us back, both from a society point of view as well as economically. And one of those issues in financial services is true is about gender diversity, which hasn't always been really the right balance that it should be. And whilst some progress is being made, it needs to move much faster. We see fintech, and fintech in Scotland, giving that opportunity to drive that forward. And that really is the theme of today's session. So we're going to go from different ends of the spectrum. We're going to go with Jackie, who's going to share really more, not just about fintech, but about really, as investors, investing in new enterprises to help them get going with their ideas and to establish a business. And Jackie's insight, and I've worked with Jackie for a couple of years now, absolutely fascinating. Because actually to be an angel investor is open to more people, but maybe there's some mystique that sits around that. Jackie will unfold that. Then we'll go on to hear from Laurel and Jude about their particular fintech enterprises and the journey that those businesses or enterprises have been on, but also themselves as individuals in women leading those particular firms. And then the whole sort of the way the ecosystem operates really only really starts to thrive if it's got the right support mechanisms and professional services sitting around it. And one of the key leading support aspects is around from a legal and a law regulation point of view. And we're very fortunate to have in Scotland Yvonne Dunn, who is one of the leading lawyers in the area of fintech, particularly in the field of open banking. So we'll hear from Yvonne on about her journey in this very exciting world. So that's our session for today. I'm going to stop there before my voice goes any further and hand over to my good friend Jackie. Hello, Jackie.
Thank you.
Do I pass this to Jackie?
Right, okay. It's a little bit of technical setup required.
Have you got, do you want this one first?
Yes,
is
okay,
that right?
That's
So,
fine.
is that right?
Sorry, forgive me, I'm not too familiar with this.
So I think it will.
It goes, yeah, right, okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
No.
Oh. It didn't happen like that in the rehearsal.
Do you know what, folks, if you don't mind, I don't like standing behind a podium, to be honest, but it might, I'll stand to the side of it, and I think that might
The only other
work.
thing, you have to wear two as well, Jackie.
Yeah,
because that one's for the global filming.
Even if I just hold it, actually, maybe that'll
Could you
that'll
click
be fine.
that one on? Is that
Yeah,
on?
sure. Sorry, everybody. There we go. How's that? Is that okay? Sound okay? Right, great. Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. That's absolutely brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Stephen and more recently his team. The impact in such a short period of time has been really quite amazing. Very, very, very excited about the future and what that might hold. And, you know, obviously, as you'll gather by the name Investing Women, very much with a female focus and, you know, massive interest in inclusion and diversity in what we're doing. So as you'll see from the strapline there, changing the face of angel investing, which is more general than fintech, but you know, within our massive areas of interest, fintech companies, and obviously present company very much included of massive interest, particularly when there are female founders involved. So this is really good. What I usually start with in terms of talking about investing women. Sorry, I can see various members of the audience cringing because we've got several of our members here tonight and they're just about all featured in the photograph. So you'll be able to tell from the slightly red faces and embarrassed looks in the back who they are, but I'm sure you'll get to meet them shortly. So why investing women? Because I'm asked that frequently actually. You know, by media. We are Scotland's only all-female business angel group, and which I founded. There's now a whole team of us involved, not just in actually being part of it, but very much running it. and doing a lot more besides the angel group, an awful lot more, which I'll tell you about. So why Investing Women? So at the point that I set up Investing Women, really interesting to look at the statistics here. So in Scotland, most people don't know this. Most people understand what angel investors are because you've seen it on Dragon's Den, and in fact we've got one of the dragons in a photograph here shortly as well. And you know, a lot of misconceptions actually that have been generated by that as well actually. But we understand what it means. We're investing in someone else's business. Now, what you probably don't know is that Scotland's got a very sophisticated community of business angels that's been around longer than anywhere else globally, including the US. It's a really well organised and collaborative industry in Scotland. And per head of population, per capita, we invest more than any other nation in the world. So we've actually got the world's most dynamic business angel community. But despite that backdrop, at the point that we got involved in setting up Investing Women, only 2% of that community was female. You know, so a very obvious omission there, a very obvious gap. And the thing that motivated me to do something about it is that I'd been involved on a national level with UK government actually, and as an advisor looking at access to finance for women entrepreneurs specifically. And actually that statistic had not moved in 10 years. So there was a very obvious need to actually stimulate the marketplace there, because what you do need to know is in terms of, and I'm sure most people would guess this anyhow, in terms of ability and capacity, both financially and in terms of just being an angel and what that involves and the skills involved, there is no difference between men and women in the UK, and even on the levels of wealth, you know, take that as being a guideline word, not the preconception that we probably all have about multi-millions, because that's not true. You know, for getting involved as an angel investor, people imagine, you know, there's absolutely no reason why we should not have 50-50 when it comes to men and women involved in this sector. So time to do something about it. Which is why we set up Investing Women. And I think one of the things that I'd like to highlight is it is absolutely about more than the money. It's one of our straplines. And it's about what has been missing from the marketplace here in Scotland in terms of skills, knowledge, expertise, networks, you know, access to industry specialists, etc. And 50% of that, i.e. women, has actually been missing until recently in Scotland. We've pushed the level of female angels up to about 5% from 2% in about just over 2 years. So that's one of the outcomes. So that's the why, because, you know, it seems like a pretty obvious why, but, you know, we do get asked that a lot. Now, the other why is something called the echo effect. So, as we say here, growth in women angels is actually echoed by growth in scalable women-led companies. And clearly within that context, you know, there are many sectors, but the two sectors that absolutely attract the most angel investment in Scotland and have the most scalable companies are life sciences and tech, and within tech, Fintech. Very, very important sector to Scotland, and we're in a great position, as Stephen says. So, you know, really high priority. So that's where, you know, really want to see the growth. And the reason that we know this, these statistics are actually, well, as you can see, it's 2015, and I'm going to give you an update on that in a second, but there's a very clear correlation that's been proven from, it's actually now more than the 11 years, it's 12 or even 13 years now of evidence from the USA, where there's a, you know, almost a, you know, so closely correlated, the percentage women angels and the percentage of female founded companies that are actually attracting investment to go for serious scalable growth. What's really interesting about this is that it isn't just about a direct line. So, you know, it's easy to make the assumption from that women investors will only invest in women-led companies. well, we get extremely excited at investing in women angels when it's a women-led company, but we don't invest just in women-led companies. So what I think this tells us, and it's the same in the USA, is that it's about creating an encouraging environment and channels and access routes that maybe were not that easy to find for many women beforehand, both on the angel side and also on the entrepreneur side. So that's what the evidence shows us. More recent statistics are actually showing that the percentage of angel-backed companies led by women in the USA has exceeded by quite a bit, by about 9%. I think it's gone up to about 34%. Women-led companies accessing investment. That's actually really good news, because I think what that means is that the momentum has got to the extent now that it actually has got beyond the stage where it's dependent on an increase in female angels. So I would take that as a very positive indicator, and we're excited to hope that we can see that trend happening here in Scotland soon. In terms of what we've achieved, and this is about 2.5 years. So because there were so few women angels in Scotland, even though I've been working at this for over 4 years, it took quite some time, obviously, to find women that wanted to get involved in the group, because they weren't there. So when we got to a critical enough mass to be able to start investing as an angel group, it was about 2.5 years ago. So in that period of time, this is what we've achieved. We're just closing, and it's definitely going to happen, so I've included them in the stats, this week on another company, and so it's 12 companies now that we have backed. We have reached the £1 million in private investment with our members, but it's the multiplier on that that's really, a big impact figure. So that's up to, it's actually over 11 million of investment that has gone into early stage companies. If you look at the strict average, and there are big from to range in this, but it's around about 400,000 is actually the average that goes in at that early stage. That's that's a lot of activity. So yeah, 2 to 5% in terms of the angeling. It's more than double actually. Of the companies we've invested in, 75% with female founders. Now, I can't be absolute about this because the statistics are not really accurately maintained, but from my knowledge and asking around before we were around, we couldn't name more than about 3 that female-led that had investment. So that's another 9. I know these are still small figures, but it's the where it's going that's important here. So the momentum is building. So these are important stats. Also important is where we could get to if we had 50-50 with male and female investors. So based on 2017 actual statistics in terms of investment overall in Scotland, led by angels, there's a bit of a multiplier effect there with Scottish Investment Bank, etc., 50 million. And it's, obviously we're still quite low at 5%, so it's up to about another 50 million per annum that could go into the earliest stage companies in Scotland if you had 50-50 in terms of male and female investors, because big multipliers there. Now, in the bigger scheme of things, those are good figures, they're not massive maybe, but what does that mean? That would be probably at least another 100 companies per year at early stage, with the most probability in terms of growth and scale. So the multiplier on that is really rather large. So that's a big opportunity to miss if we don't increase. So a few examples of our female founders and companies that we're just proud to have been involved in. I mentioned about tech and biotech, and there at the far end there above my name is Angela Scott. And Angela was originally, she's known best before TC Biopharm for being one of the team involved in Dolly the sheep. And TC Biopharm is now a world-leading immunocell therapy company, which has had major breakthroughs in cancer treatment. And the company has now just gone into the USA and Japan. And we're very proud to have been the only angel group in Scotland actually to have backed that company. So major success. Female founder, there were 2 co-founders and Angela was one of them. So fantastic. In the middle, we've got Alex Feehan there, and just to show it isn't always all about tech, Alex has an outdoor clothing range, which we reckon is quality-wise every bit as good as Icebreaker, and actually has got some advantages, and there's great potential for the future. And then Polly Van Alstyne here from Scottish Bioenergy, or Scott Bio as they're shortened to now. So it's another biotech company making natural blue and doing all sorts of interesting things with blue algae. So those are just a few examples. And here we've got an image from our Get a Little Woo-Ha tonight. That's actually Heather McDonald from Woo-Ha Brewing, an all-female brewing company in the Highlands, which is doing massive things in the USA now. Very excited about where Heather's taking her company. She was one of last year's Accelerate Her winners, and this is actually an image from our Ambition and Growth Conference, which we ran on International Women's Day, and we've now run for 3 years, and really exciting female-led companies coming through there. There's Polly again. It was just to let you see some of the corporate engagement there as well, because I think many people are recognising the potential here for actually, a very exciting market trend with really exciting female founders going forward. There's Laurel. I forgot to warn you about that, Laurel. Sorry. There's Laurel at the front there, and these are our winners of Accelerate Her this year, celebrating, because all of them will be Accelerate Her. We created it, and it is creating a new platform for very exciting female-founded companies to go for serious, scalable growth. And thrilled that Laurel and our daughter Aishel with Sustainably were one of our winners this year, will be coming with us to California later in the year, and we're actually taking some of the rest of the group and others to Dubai in about 4 weeks' time. So it's all very exciting. There you go. Yeah, picture of Dubai. I think you might have wiped that one out. We're getting a tour of that hotel, by the way. It's a Global Scot that runs it in here. All sorts happening there. Don't actually have one of Golden Gate Bridge, but never mind. And yeah, there's the winners again. And I'm conscious of time. So what I wanted to highlight as well is that it's a really exciting place to be. We all love being involved in our angel group. We love working with the entrepreneurs. We're doing so much more than just investing. And I just wanted to highlight that, there are 5 reasons to be an angel investor. And, we know the ones that excite us the most, but, and very much at this end, really, being constantly inspired by the incredible entrepreneurs we meet, and present company very much included in that. I mean, just amazing. And you learn so much. We access opportunities to invest in these high growth companies, and that is so much more accessible than people realise. And maybe get into that later rather than take up time now. It's not the multi-millions. And there are a couple of there that relate to tax reliefs. We've got the best tax environment globally in the UK for investment, really. So our colleagues that work a lot with the USA look on are green with envy about the environment we've got here. It's just so much better than people realise. Lots of benefits on that level. And basically, we never stop learning from the amazing innovations that we see. So it's really invigorating space to be in. And then the other reason why you might want to get involved is that you get to take selfies, look, and it's okay. There's sorry, I'm embarrassing Poonam now, who's sitting in the audience. So this is actually Jenny Campbell from Dragon's Den, who came along and actually helped us out at the conference, presented our winners, inspired everybody with her story, and was quite up for taking selfies as well. So no, we get to work with some really amazing people, including much wider than the group. So anyhow, that was that's it for me. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm just doing the handover here because it was lovely, and a chance to ask Jackie some questions when we go through all the other sort of presentations as well. So let's go to the other end of the spectrum, really, in terms of then actually setting up and running the business. And we've got 2 fantastic examples, I think, really say a lot about the opportunities here in Scotland. Laurel, and in being in this role is that you learn very quickly a lot of the fintech enterprises in Scotland are there, yes, to be successful as a commercial entity, but also have a real strong purpose behind them. that's driving them forward. And Laurel's enterprise very much sort of epitomises that. So delighted that Laurel's here with us to share us your journey with Sustainably.
Thank you.
So I'll leave you to whatever you.
Try and attach all of these bits and pieces. Thanks. Thank you. Let's get all this on. Hi everyone. I'm Laurel from Sustainably, here to talk about my journey, and I have prepared this speech this morning, so hopefully it will be insightful and interesting to the audience. So yeah, why is FinTech a great place to be, and how can we encourage more diversity and inclusion? So, let me see. That's me, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm also going to talk about why I have a love-hate relationship with female sanitary products. Yes. So just to kind of put it into context, Jackie's mentioned a bit about the statistics. The current gender statistics for startups are shocking, with just 17% of startups having a female co-founder and only 9% of them going on to ever get funded. And a tiny 4% of VC-backed startups have all female teams, so obviously really important what Jackie and the team is doing. It's unsurprising when we know that only 7% of VC partners are women, which is a really frustrating fact considering it's the most powerful and influential form of finance in the world. So stereotypes continue to be everywhere, even after years of trying to reach a level playing field across gender and race. Starling Bank recently commissioned some really interesting research where they looked at 300 articles from a mix of outlets aimed at women and men. 65% of those articles defined women as excessive spenders, advising them to limit their shopping. And 90% tell women to cut back, and 71% say women bargain hunt. Whereas for men, in those articles, 70% say money makes you more of a man, and 60% recommend investment apps. This is just not acceptable. And I love this quote from Anne Boden. Money is an issue for a lot of people, but women encounter far more systematic obstacles when it comes to their finances. Gender inequality reaches far beyond low salaries and boardroom tokenism. It starts with the way we are taught and the way we're spoken to. So it's literally everywhere. I grew up around the corner from here long before social media. In fact, this area over the road, there was actually Clydesdale horses coming in and out of here every day with milk carts. Unbelievable. I kid you not. Fat Sam's was one of my favourite places to go, RIP, Fat Sam's. My first job was in a butcher shop. My first job was in a butcher shop at the age of 14 when I was still at school, which my mum got for me through a friend. I lasted 2 weeks, fainted, and left. I'm now a vegan. That was the only time my mother interfered with my career or my life, luckily. Since then, I've had multiple roles in the charity, travel, music, and investment industry, spanning 4 continents and nearly 3 decades. Whoops. In my last role, I set up and scaled the digital team for an investment company from 6 countries and $40 billion in assets under management to over 30 countries and $400 billion in assets in 10 years. I was the chair of the British Interactive Media Association in Scotland, a member of the Marketing Society's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and a Google Squared alumni. It wasn't particularly easy. I had some horrible bosses, but I was very resilient, extremely hardworking, surrounding myself with people I trusted, and I always stood by my core beliefs, even if others were doing things I thought were totally crazy. But this was the real me, a self-professed workaholic with a passion for continual learning and dogs, an entrepreneur from a very young age. I went on to have the best paid part-time job at school, and by 18 I was managing a portfolio of £5 million for a global custodian bank. I was the first person to go to uni in my family, the first person in my family to run a marathon, go to Asia, go to Africa, go to the US. Probably the first to do a lot of things. I had no limits as to what I thought I could achieve. I guess the concept of diversity and inclusion at that time didn't really cross my mind. I just knew there was injustice in the world. And I had formed my own narrow view of my bosses, 99% of whom had been white men, and I wasn't particularly a fan of any of them, personally, or their management skills. But I didn't really think about diversity and inclusion much at that stage. I just thought a lot of men were really ballsy and mostly lacked any substance. Then I had my amazing daughter Aishel. At the age of 24, I became a single parent. I had always been really driven, but being a single parent really gave me that further drive to create a better world for us both. So at that point, I had graduated from uni with a degree with distinction, having worked 3 jobs to pay myself through it, then moved to London for a career at that point in advertising. Then pregnant, I decided to move back from London, where at the time I was working in a music management company managing Morrissey with a very horrible boss who was spotty and always picking his nose. So I had no job, no partner, and had a baby, no money. So I thought, what can I do to make some money? So I made all the outfits for Aishel's nursery in exchange for her going to nursery 1 day a week. I made clothes to sell in the skateboarding shops. I made clothes for me and Aishel. I made clothes for my cousin, who was a joiner, in order to exchange it for work in my flat. I designed a website for a builder in exchange for him doing some building work. I designed a website for a friend's fashion business in exchange for designer clothes. I made furniture for my house, including a massive Habitat-esque style and sofa and a pull-down bed for Aishel's room, and that was my maternity leave. But then, by then I had got Aishel a cheap space, a very cheap multicultural nursery, which I remember very well, love it, called the Roundabout Centre, for a few mornings a week. So my friend got me this job working for a charity, and then another friend suggested a job at a tour operator. And then then someone actually gave me a car. It was a heap that their nanny had been using, but it was a car nevertheless. Yeah. But I left that job as my white male boss was prone to temper tantrums and throwing his computer. Then after one hideous bout of temping, at one point I was actually typing dictation from a dictaphone at a hospital. I got a job temping at Standard Life. Woo! Where I met a friend who suggested a permanent job was going at Edinburgh Fund Managers, which actually went on to become Aberdeen Asset, which is now Aberdeen Standard. Anyway, I loved my job at EFM. I was the marketing manager for the venture capital arm of the business and responsible for the website, which is crazy to think I'm now speaking to VCs and responsible for my own digital platform. But fast forward to a few years ago, and I had this massive global role as head of digital marketing and strategy for a FTSE 100, managing millions of pounds in budget, a large team, and multiple vendors. I was traveling every week. I was recently asked for an upcoming prestigious award I've won, what book or film describes my life, and I said Game of Thrones. Political allegiances are formed every day. There are spies everywhere, people killing one another, and the centre of the universe is King's Landing, London. And winter is always coming. I was literally living in Game of Thrones. I had to go to King's Landing a lot, as modern technology hadn't been invented, nor had distributed teams. There was a lot of spies and ravens required. Anyway, I was advising the board on digital strategy across the business, and I thought to myself, what am I doing? It was a real epiphany moment when I thought, why am I here? What am I doing with my life? I can stay here and keep doing this, trying to advise the token board to make some serious transformation decisions, or I can get out there and actually make something I'm passionate about. And my face was literally falling off. I resembled the Hound or a White Walker, if anyone's watched Game of Thrones. Anyway, suffice to say, it was not a good look. That was my actual face in Duane Reade in the US on a business trip. So I decided to leave that day. So the idea of doing something good that disrupted an entire market kept coming back to me. Sustainably is a new way of living and giving that makes doing good hassle-free and simple. It's a real-time social responsibility platform that makes it easy for businesses and consumers to have an impact every day. Sustainably was shortlisted for a BIMA Award for Technology with Conscience, won Best of Show at Finovate, and is a top 5 Virgin startup. My daughter Aishel is the Chief Creative Officer I don't recommend getting pregnant and waiting 24 years to get yourself a co-founder, but it works for us. Consumers can change the world every time they shop by microdonating their spare change. We round up their cashless transactions and donate their spare change to causes they care about automatically wherever they shop. They simply connect their card. Latent plug here. With sustainably, busy consumers get to make an impact through microdonations with complete privacy, transparency and control, so no more unwanted communication, and they get to do good, feel good every day on their own terms. It uses gamification, so users can understand their impact with impact points and levels. Unlike other forms of giving, they can pause it or change all instantly and see their employer and the retailers they buy from match donating with them in real time. Sustainably helps brands increase the visibility and impact. They can match donate in real time with their customers and employees, hyper-localizing and personalizing their social responsibility programs, increasing their return on social investment by more than 200%. And really, it brings together trends in growing cashless transactions, philanthropy, ethical consumerism, and corporate social responsibility to create impact. There were 433 billion cashless transactions last year. Think of the impact we could make. In a recent study from Fiord, they predict 2018 will be the year of the ethics economy, where people will choose brands that align with their own beliefs. For this talk, I was thinking a lot about the role models in my life and looking at the top 100 women in fintech. Yes, there are more than 100. And some of the amazing women that have inspired me. Claire Cockerton, who set up Level 39 in Innovate Finance and gave me the chance to attend her Fin for Femme Accelerator in London, where I met Megan Carewood of Starling Bank and Julia Streets of Streets Consulting, who now sits on my advisory board. Gela Boscovich, founder of Femtech Global, who connected me to Finovate, where we went on to win Best of Show, surrounded by a sea of white men. My own amazing female advisors, Vicky Brock, who's a constant source of inspiration through her fantastic podcast, and Leslie Eccles of FanDuel for her reality checks. Jackie Waring and her team at Investing Women, Gwen Edwards and Susan Preston, my mother, who is one of the most amazing, resilient women I've ever met, and my daughter, who inspires me to be better every day. I also want to give a shout out to all the amazing men who help me every day. 50% of our advisory board is male, and they are brilliant. And a special thank you to Paul Matthews. There are just too many others to name, but it's all about women today. So some advice to all you future female co-founders and leaders in fintech. Be bold, spot opportunities and take them. Take a risk. A very successful, inspiring woman once told me, what's the riskiest thing you can do? Do that. You can always go back to doing what you did before. Maybe not after this. Ask for help. So many people want to give back, as they know they were helped. Surround yourself with smart people, learn new things every day, use your network, and everyone knows everyone, so try and be your best self. For companies, develop your female colleagues, learn about unconscious bias, teach them business skills, not confidence skills. The reason they're not confident is precisely because they don't have business skills. Don't discriminate and only offer it to the chosen few. Lastly, back to the sanitary towels. Sustainably was nominated by Blooming Founders to be finalists at the Female Founders Startup Battle at Unbound in London last year, where we lost out to a buy one, give one sanitary product. This year at the Virgin Startup Finals, we lost out to another innovative, unique sanitary product with that same buy one, give one model. And someone asked me when I was reporting a serious allegation of discrimination to a board member, have I had my menopause yet? As I was coming across a bit emotional. Firstly, the lack of sanitary products globally is a disaster for women, both personally and professionally, all across the world. And I'm fully supportive of the need to make sanitary products available to all women and girls. But don't use my periods against me, as I may be having a bad one right now, and my mood could kill. Thanks.
Wow, there you go. There's an inspiring journey. And so we're going to go from one inspiring journey really to another, really, with Jude. So really delighted Jude's here with us from sharing. Right, Jude, okay. So there's that's I think, and that's still on as well. So. Okay, thank you, Jude.
Great, thanks, Laurel. How on earth do you beat that? That was really, really brilliant. So what I wanted to do was talk about two things. First of all, I thought I'd explain a bit about sharing. And then secondly, I hope you're sitting comfortably because I was going to tell you my life story. So first of all, sharing. So I am guessing, looking at the room, that the room is broadly split into three types of people. One, who have no idea who sharing is and no idea what crowdfunding is. Two, people who do know about crowdfunding and think sharing are a bit like a rubbish crowd cube. And three, people who work at sharing. Right, so for the first people in the room, what is sharing about? So we are all about direct investment. And what I mean by is cutting out all the layers and layers of bureaucracy and ensuring that savers can be matched with borrowers and disintermediation, thank you Laurel, you're wonderful, of all the crap in between. Capital markets were created to match savers and borrowers, and that is what sharing's primary focus is about, enabling savers and borrowers to connect. Right, so that's level one, what sharing is about. Level two, the people who think we're a rubbish crowd cube. Right, Crowdcube or Seeders or any other crowdfunding platform that you may have heard of are all involved in early stage investment. In companies like mine or like Laurel's, and they are not our competition. What they do is brilliant and wonderful, and they're funding startups, which is brilliant. However, their market is tiny. It's over here. In the UK, they fund all early stage investment in the UK, perhaps totals at best £1 billion a year in the UK. However, sharing's market is all to do, well, most of our clients currently fund either property transactions or renewable energy bonds. So property. Property in the UK is trillions of pounds, not billions, trillions. Over here, renewable energy projects that need funding, there's been estimates that in the UK alone, we need £100 billion of funding in the next 2 years to fund renewable energy projects. So these are much bigger markets. And what our clients do are funding either property deals or renewable energy deals. So our clients, still what you're talking about, how does that work? So we are providing a platform for people who want to facilitate that direct investment from savers to borrowers. So the best way to demonstrate that is to give some examples of our clients. One of the proudest ones we've got at the moment is Triodos Bank, Ethical Bank. They've been involved in funding lovely ethical projects for years, and they've been putting them out on various platforms over the years. They came to Sharing because they wanted to build their own platform. And so we have white labeled a solution, so all they've got to care about is finding good deals and marketing those deals to their investor base. And they've got loads of investors base. They've got credit, they've got a current account and they've got ISA products. They have got a network of people who want to put their money in ethical stuff that they care about. So Triodos Bank is a client that we're very proud of. We've got other lovely clients too. Lender Hand Ethics is another platform that was created to fund solar projects in Africa. So Lend a Hand Ethics find these projects in Africa, and then they market them in the UK, and in return people get what they're buying is a bond, and in return they get, say, 4%, 5% return. And they get the added benefit of putting money in something they actually care about and that they want to happen. So we take away the headache of having the website, putting deals up, handling their money, doing ID checking for them, all of this, a tech solution. I don't know if people are familiar with Shopify, but Shopify and other e-commerce platforms like Shopify or Magento basically provide this tech solution, so anybody who wants to set up a shop doesn't have to think, how on earth do I do this each time? Nobody in their right mind would start their own shop now. You'd just use a SaaS service. And in the same way, Sharing have worked to deliver a product where nobody in their right mind would try to create their own investment platform, because we can get them up and running in 8 weeks at 1/10 of the cost. So that's a big plug for Sharing. So hopefully I've covered the people who don't know anything about us. 2, the people who think we're a rubbish crowd tube. 3, now this front row along here, if none of you if people are still not with me, what on earth Sharing does, you have to go and introduce yourself to these 4 lovely people at the front and say, what was she on about? Right, so that was the first bit. Now, get yourselves comfy. It's the Jude's whole life story. So no, bear with me. Hopefully we'll be able to wrap it up in 5 minutes. And nowhere near as good as yours, Laurel, and it's a shame we're doing the same thing. But little Jude, age 14, 15, quite like maths and physics, and an engineer turns up at school saying, the world needs engineers. So I'm like, okay, I'll do engineering then. So I did engineering at university. And then at the end of university, God, what am I going to do now? People arrive, oh, accountancy, you can get a job in accountancy. It's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. I'll be an accountant. Obviously very susceptible to influence here. But then a few years, did my accountancy exams, and went and worked for British Telecom for a bit in corporate finance. And then fast forward to 2004, and now I'm in Edinburgh. And I take some time out and have some kids. I have 3 kids, and stopped working for a bit to focus on them. And gave up my London job. When I was pregnant, I was commuting down to London, and that wasn't going to work for me. So I was fortunate enough to be able to not work for a little bit. Then 2008, 2009, I'm starting to go mad, because I'm not working, and all I'm thinking about is kids, and I need to be doing something else personally. So I'm like scratching my brain, I want to do something that matters. I want to do something I really care about. So what can I do? And actually, I think there's probably a bit of a fundamental lack of confidence, thinking, how am I going to get a job? I haven't had a job in Edinburgh before. I want a flexible job. I don't know what on earth I was thinking, that creating Sharing was going to be the super flexible job, by the way. Don't know. I think when you take some time out of the workplace, people can often lack confidence about getting back into the workforce. And also, if you're not, well, this is back in 2008, 2009, and perhaps employers weren't so aware of trying to make the ease back into work, offering part-time. Anyway, so I'm right, okay, what can I do? Business plans, I know, I like writing a good business plan. Let's see if anybody needs help writing business plans. So I start offering literally anybody that I will help to do business plans, to help them try to access funding. and got so super into this. I mean, it's a bit like what Jackie was saying. It's just absolutely fascinating hearing people's dreams about what they want to do. I mean, they just open up and tell you this thing that they're so passionate about, and they go. Anyway, so I'm helping people with business plans, and now, and I'm getting quite good comments about this, and I do some quite interesting things on this, and one of which Business Gateway here are recommending me to people, and then I end up being one of the people that I was helping has got an angel investor that might invest in them. And this is no ordinary angel investor. This is Anne Gloag in her castle up in Perth, and how exciting this is. So we go up to a castle, and we had this amazing, and Anne Gloag was so brilliant listening to this. However, it just opened my eyes to this world I had known nothing about. When I was a chartered accountant, I worked at Deloitte, and I audited huge companies, and I had no experience of early stage companies. But this is now creeping into 2010, 2011, and the banks have stopped lending, and this is feeling like this is mental, the fact that there isn't an online way to get early stage investment. I mean, this is pre-investing women. You have to, if you want to get investment, you're basically going around old boys clubs, pitching at golf clubs, trying to get funding. And this just seems ridiculous. So this is 2011, and I'm thinking, oh, isn't there a way to use the interweb to mobilize first round friends and family funding? And I start investigating this idea, find out it's illegal. Secondly, getting pushback from experts. Go over to Glasgow, the entrepreneurship centre there at Strathclyde, and it's like, nobody's going to invest without seeing the whites of the eyes of people. It's pushback like when nobody's going to buy a TV or a sofa on the interweb. Anyway, so I'm thinking, but I'm doing this really part-time. The kids are little, and I'm thinking, and then Crowdcube launch in March or April that year, because crowdfunding hadn't existed before then. And then this is really fascinating. Slightly gutting that they're doing it, but I'm also like, wow, I'm on the edge of my seat watching what's going to happen now. This is actually fascinating, what's going to happen. So then a few of us joined the UK Crowdfunding Association, and so this is Crowdcube and Seeders and Sharing. So we're talking about this, and round about middle of that year, I met Andrew, the co-founder of Sharing. And so, Fintech, I'm the Fin, he's the tech. Can't have a Fintech without the tech. Luckily, I met wonderful Andrew. He was at a networking event at the university, E-Club event, and he had a strategy of helping about 10 startups see which one he thought would go anywhere. Anyway, Sharing won. He's still with us. Got Andrew sucked in. We're trying on this crowdfunding idea, and we eventually did launch. It was all very part-time for both of us, and we launched the platform in 2013. But by this stage, start of 2014, Crowdcube and Seeders have got a couple of £1 million behind them, and they've got adverts on the tube in London, and Andrew and I are doing this part time. And marketplaces are really challenging. I don't know if anybody had ever thought about this. I hadn't thought about it before I started on this adventure. How tricky marketplaces are. Without good deals, how do you get investors? Without good investors, how do you get deals? And finding investors can take a lot of money. So we had a couple of successes on the platform, but then 2014, Andrew and I are thinking, this isn't working, how can we compete? So we scratch our heads and think, actually, you know what? let's not pretend to bring investors. And let's not pretend to bring deals, and actually just take away the bit everyone else thinks is boring, the platform and the compliancy bit, and we'll just focus on that. So 3 years ago last week, on the 20th of March 2015, we did a funding round and we raised around about £600,000. Before that, it was me and Andrew, very part-time. 3 years ago, 20th of March, we got this money to build a team, and Sharing is now 17 people. And Sharing has been profitable for almost 18 months. And of these 17 people, 12 of which are women. And we've never hired, we've always hired the best person for the job. But we have such an amazing eclectic mix in Sharing of nationalities. We've got 10 nationalities, of age, and I'm really proud of our gender balance that we've got. So what now for Sharing? Well, we've got loads of exciting plans and we want to double the team and we're growing really fast. Last year we tripled our revenue. This time last year, I think was the 7 of us, now we're 17, soon trying to hire another 3. So we're growing really fast and it's really exciting. And I am so pleased that I started out on this venture and I was thinking, right, so what's this about fintech opportunities? And I think just inherent in this sector is fintech is full of disruptors, full of people who actually just want to turn things a bit upside down. And looking at the slide earlier when, you know, the semicircle one, and you're looking at them and you just look at all of the people like Nucleus Financial, or like when we grow up, we want to be like Nucleus Financial. They're like a proper grown-up company with like 200 people. And that's exactly what I'd love Sharing to be, like a proper. But David there, he's a total, you know, he did that because he saw something was broken. And there's so many opportunities available in fintech, and particularly in Sharing, to really make a difference and to do interesting things rather than just being part of a machine. So that's the end. And I would encourage you to come and, if you still don't know what on earth Sharing do, to come and see if these 4 can try any better.
Well, thank you, Jude. I think it's captured really what I was trying to say earlier. You can see why it's so inspiring being involved in fintech. So I'm going to hand over now to Yvonne, and Yvonne's obviously with Princeton Mason's been our host here, but it's important really that for the ecosystem to work, as I said earlier, it's about people working together in teams, bringing together expertise. The legal side is crucially important in a very regulated environment. So delighted to have you here with us.
Thank you. You'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to talk about a very regulated environment tonight, because I think that would send you all off to sleep. I'm very conscious that I'm standing between you and a glass of wine, so I'll make it brief. But thanks, Stephen, for asking me to speak tonight. Stephen, when he first asked me to speak tonight, I was saying, would you like me to speak about advising women on investing? Would you like? And he said, no, I'd like to speak about your journey. I said, oh, okay, all right then. Don't normally do that, but let's do that for a change. So there we go. So I think what matters to me in relation to work is 2 very obvious things, but that are often overlooked, which is what you do and where you do it. And that's basically what I'm going to talk about tonight. Because what you do and where you do it, we spend a lot of time at work, and we work very hard. And being able to enjoy both what you do and where you do it, I think is extremely important. In terms of career path, I wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age, and I have no idea why. A bit like Laurel, my parents didn't go to university, and a bit like Laurel, that came quite nicely with no sense of any boundaries, though, no sense of any limitations. We all went wide-eyed into the world to see what might happen, and so I ended up doing law. Thankfully, it worked out quite well, and I quite enjoyed it, but I still can't honestly tell you why I chose that path. And after you finish at uni, you go off and do a traineeship. I got a traineeship at a sort of medium-sized Scottish firm at the time. You do 4 6-month blocks. My first block was in property and I hated it, absolutely hated it, still do. You know, colouring in plans and all that entailed was just not for me. So I was lucky enough, having gone through that 6 months, also with the senior partner who was quite scary. My reward was that I got to do what I wanted next, and I moved into corporate, and I spent the rest of my traineeship in various versions of corporate, and became a sort of corporate M&A lawyer in that firm, and stayed there for just under 10 years. Moved all the way through to partner at the firm. And it was interesting because you get to that stage, and I was relatively young. I was about 30 when I became a partner, and then you sort of stop and think, you've reached that peak, and then you think, oh, actually, is this what I'm looking for? And inertia is there, but I did get one of those Friday afternoon headhunter calls that you get sometimes, and I could tell by because the headhunters are always very coy until you make them tell you who it is, because frankly you're not going to move unless you know who it is. You're not even going to go for coffee. And it was apparent from the description that the headhunter was talking about Masons, as they were known at the time. And Masons had opened in Scotland about 3 years before that, so babies in law firm terms. And it sounds ridiculous now, this is 2004, but the word in the street was, ooh, they're very innovative, they hot desk. Oh, yes, they use cordless phones. Steady now, but in the legal profession, we move at a different pace. So that was really interesting, but also just the idea of being part of a startup, which was effectively still what the firm was at that stage, but an interesting startup because it was the Scottish startup of a much larger law firm. So there was something quite interesting to pick up on there. So I joined the firm. We became Pinsent Masons 6 weeks later, which in Scottish terms didn't have much of an impact because there wasn't a Pinsents to merge with up here. But what it did mean was that we had to grow very quickly because the overall firm had suddenly become much bigger and we needed to catch up. And that meant that we went through a period of hiring, and every week new people were joining, and it was a really exciting time. And I now talk to a lot of our new offices and new partners that we hire in. I was in Dublin last week when we launched, and I was saying, I'm so jealous of this time because it's such an exciting time as you grow this business. When I moved from the firm to join Pinsent Masons, I joined as a senior associate, so I took a step down in terms of job title. I did that for 2 reasons, well 3 actually. One, that was what they offered me, but from a personal point of view, I did it because I was moving into a different area. I was moving from being a corporate lawyer into doing more technology work, and so there's just a credibility factor of beginning and upskilling. I had a lot of transferable skills, but I still had a bit to do. And there was also the fact that partnership had been okay, but a bit meh. And I wanted to see what that would look like somewhere else before jumping in again and get the opportunity to do that. So 2007 I made partner at Pinsent Masons and have been there ever since. I head up the TMT financial services team. We do a lot of stuff in Fintech, which I'll come on to. But I also have a broader role in the firm because I sit on our partnership committee, which is responsible for the hiring of partners into the firm, whether that's laterally from other firms or whether that's promoting upwards. And that's an amazing role and such a privilege to get to do that. Gives you such an insight into what is a very large law firm. I know people all over the world now and parts of our business all over the world that you just wouldn't necessarily get from being here. So that's the kind of potted journey. This is just there's a lot of detail on this, but Pinsent Masons, and this comes to what you do and where you do it. Pinsent Masons really is a fantastic place to work, and I feel very lucky to be here. We are a firm that we have values. Our values are easy as ABC, approachable, bold and connected, and we really do live those values. Lots of companies have values, but the test is whether or not they really live them. And I think in big law firms, the test is whether or not you're prepared to jettison people who make you a lot of money but do not live up to your values, and we have done that. and that means a lot. The values come up all the time when we're talking about promoting people, when we're talking about bringing them into the business, when we're talking about how much to remunerate them. You know, values come up. They are the letters that go all through of us, and that's really, really important in terms of credibility and in terms of bringing people in and bringing them through. You know, we focus on areas like innovation in the way that we deliver legal services. We employ software engineers. We develop our own technology around how we deliver legal services. And that is, for me, a really interesting and exciting place to be, and probably quite unlike your sort of traditional image of law firms. We focus on diversity. It is a huge part of our ethos. In terms of Project Sky is our female targets that we've set in terms of growing our partnership and growing the proportion of women who are partners in our business. We set those targets, we made them public, we're doing very well against them, and it's an area that is a challenge for law firms, and we are doing extremely well against those targets. And again, we live those. You know, whenever a group head comes to us with their long list of people they might want to promote, they are asked to explain if there is a difference in terms of percentages if it's less than 50-50. Now, that doesn't mean that it is always 50-50 at the end, but the very fact you're asked to explain that means that you tend to come thinking about it and you've thought about it before. And so just again, it's really important that these things are just enmeshed in the company. We're number 2 on the Stonewall Equality Index. We've just launched a new program around black minority ethnic and increasing the proportion of black minority ethnic people in our business. Project Sun, Project Sky, Project Sun. You can see there's a celestial theme here. And these things really matter to us. Having our own, having the best talent in our business, enabling people to be their best self and be their most authentic self every day at work is extremely important. For me, as a gay woman, it's extremely important for me to be able to come to work and feel comfortable, feel celebrated. I don't want to be tolerated, which is probably what I would be in many law firms. Who wants to be tolerated? You want to be celebrated, you want to feel comfortable. And so going back to what I do and where I do it is extremely important. So that's Pinsent Masons. Fintech at Pinsent Masons, which I am heavily involved in, is an area that we focused on probably for really quite hard for the last 3 years, but it's always been in our DNA because we're very much known for being a technology firm and we focus on financial services, but really focused on fintech. And we do that in a number of ways. We look at campaigns around particular issues, and there's some examples up on the screen there. Around open banking, which has been mentioned tonight a couple of times, around moving to the cloud. And we take those campaigns and do bits of research around it. We hold events, we get press coverage. You know, we try and make a splash, but then we try and make a sustainable splash. So we keep it going and we come back to those topics. It's all about, for us, building profile in the space. We also speak at conferences. There's a little picture of us there at London Fintech Week. Our stand, we partnered up with a coffee company, so we had the coffee baristas next to our stand. I've never seen a queue at a law firm exhibition stand in my life. It was obviously all about me, not. And we had our little branded coffee cups, and that was our own version of ambush marketing. As you can imagine, the other law firms were thrilled that our cups were all over the event. So yeah, we try and do things a bit differently and try and create a bit of a splash when we do these things. And we also have Outlaw, which is our legal news website, which is now 15 years old. And Outlaw focuses on technology and other legal topics, and is the most read legal news website in the world. So we're very proud of that, and we reach a lot of audiences around fintech through Outlaw. So that's that. And lastly, I suppose, I just wanted to try and draw a couple of threads together in terms of women and fintech and some thoughts around that. And when I talked to Stephen about this presentation, the thing that occurred to me, I mean, currently there are not enough women in fintech. and that's a story across technology. We know that, and that's an area that we want to improve. And there are some good initiatives around that. Last week we were at the Innovate Finance Global Summit, and there was a lot of talk about pledging, and they were ambushing people and saying, what's your pledge in relation to improving women representation in fintech, which is good to see. And obviously they also, Innovate Finance also have the power list, the female power list as well, which is slightly cringy. Speaking as someone who's on it, I mean it's kind of a bit cringy to be, you feel like a sort of mini superhero, but equally the key point about it is it raises awareness. It also provides a really interesting networking experience as well to go to that. So these things are extremely important, but I think women bring something to technology and to fintech that is quite unique. And it is that curiosity and also that no bullshit factor that I think is quite important. You will, in most technology sectors, but particularly in fintech, get a lot of jargon, blah, blah, blockchain, blah, blah, crypto, whatever. And there's never been so much jargon around it. And there's a balance to be struck, but I think women are good at just poking a hole in that at times and just saying, what does that mean? And it's the question that so many people in the room are thinking, but often not saying it. So I think there's a role for women. I think what we do talk about, I don't know how many of you watch W1A, but up on the screen there is Anna from W1A, who, if you don't watch the show, she basically occupies a fairly senior position in the BBC, and really it's not clear why. When they have strategic meetings, her main contribution is to say, yes, exactly, yes, after someone else says something intelligent. And I think sometimes in fintech, we feel like Anna. I discussed this with my contacts, because people are talking about highly technical, highly tricky things, and you sort of balance between what does that mean and yes, exactly, yes, and I'll look that up later. And I think that's quite important, and I think that balance is important. The balance between being curious and not afraid to question, and the fake it till you make it, I'll just go with this and I'll look it up later, is quite important. And I think that's something that, on the one hand, I think women are pretty good at pricking through some of the questions. I think sometimes we need to be a bit better with the fake it till you make it as part of it. So I suppose from my point of view, big messages that I would give out is it is very important to work somewhere that you feel comfortable in, that you feel inspires you every day, which I'm lucky enough to do. I think also to say that, going back to when I first joined this firm, not being afraid to make a sideways or backwards move at times, which ultimately takes you to where you need to get to. Having the bravery to do that is something I would commend to you. And doing something that it changes. I mean, you couldn't get more frequent change than you do in fintech. We're on a 15-minute news cycle, it seems at times, but which can be tiring, but is also inspiring in the sense that what I'm advising clients on today, I didn't even know about 12 months ago, and the same will be true in 12 months' time. And that's great, that's interesting, it's a bit better than colouring in a plan, let me tell you. And I think you're always learning, which I think is extremely important. So, trying to get into something that inspires you and that you're always learning, I think is absolutely key. That's it for me. I'll let you have your glass of wine now.
We were. Do I do that? No, I do both. Do both. Thanks, way to finish. Does that look right? That looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Sorry. Well, hopefully, like me, you feel very privileged to hear those four sort of offerings, presentations, really about Jackie's, Laurel's, Jude's, and Yvonne's journey, both in terms of their career, but also from a personal point of view. And there's no doubt we're very much role models, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to put on this evening about role models and encourage more people to realise, and women to realise actually there is a way really to break through some of the ceilings that have clearly been there, both from a tech, as Yvonne sort of said, but certainly in financial services. There are other role models out there that I look to. I very much look, in terms of the role I'm doing now, look to the role model of Gillian Doherty, who heads up Data Lab. What a wonderful job she does. What Melinda is doing at Code Clan, as well Polly Purvis at Scotland IS, and those of you who know Linda Hanna, the Managing Directors at Scottish Enterprise. Similar sort of journeys in different ways in terms of challenges to overcome, but they're kind of inspiring. It makes you actually believe actually in Scotland we can make those changes. We just need to encourage more people to realise about that journey along that sort of way. So wonderful. I could have listened all night really to all 4 of those presentations again. We were going to do Q&A, but obviously it's a bit difficult with these mics that I'm just struggling with. So hopefully it's okay. I thought you'd probably like to meet Jackie, Laurel, Jude and Yvonne over a glass of wine, if that's all right. Before I close, I just wanted to say one thing though. Sometimes change and progress is a bit challenging, but markers do come down. There is an important marker, I think it's next week, is it, where the companies of a certain size have to start to declare in their whole sort of gender pay gap aspect, really, which is a marker that goes down. And it's important. We've got Innes in the audience, and his enterprise very much as a fintech, but certainly a tech in terms of innovatively using data, really to bring out really the transparency about that gap that does exist and needs to be very clear so it can be addressed. Again, to address the issues of diversity and inclusivity that we need, not across all sectors, but particularly in tech and financial services. So Innes is here for those who want to understand the fantastic sort of job that Innes is doing. You may have seen Innes's enterprise on Channel 4 last week, because obviously the whole issue is being profiled. But I thought I'd mention that because it's an important marker. But may I say, obviously, a huge thank you to Pinsent Masons, who's put on really the opportunity to host here tonight, and their hospitality. Really huge thank you to Jackie, Laurel, Jude and Yvonne really for sharing their sort of stories, and hopefully you've enjoyed that, and please join us for a glass of wine. Thank you.